Live from the Plutopia News Network. This is the Plutopia sometimes happy, sometimes not happy, sometimes just moderately happy hour. I'm Scoop Sweeney. That over there in New Mexico, that's our foreign correspondent, Maggie Duvall. And some old codger came back home from California. What was the name again, old guy? John?
I am John Lebkowski.
Oh, I remember you now. You're that weirdo that likes to travel around. Tell us about traveling, John.
Well, we can talk about traveling quite a bit tonight because it turns out to be a little different these days when you're in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah. And also, in addition to the travel, I know you're going to get going, but I'm curious to see what the vibe was and the discussions around how LA and handled the whole year, because it's a whole different bubble, isn't it?
It really is. But interestingly enough, LA was quite lively when we got there. In fact, there were tons of people. And they were just kind of out cruising around all over the place. And incidentally, the reason that I'm lagging here is I'm posting our video stream on Facebook so that people can join us there too. So if you're on Facebook, hopefully you have found us. So we went to California for about 10 days. And we started our trip with a Southwest Airlines flight from Austin directly to LAX. One thing that we did not know, because it was not well communicated to us, was that before you fly to LAX, you're actually required to complete a form that is a very simple form that says, I understand the rules, the pandemic rules in LA and in California.
Oh, wow.
So we didn't complete that thing until we were actually into our trip, because we actually found out about it by accident. I was having a discussion on The Well, the online community, The Well, with somebody about travel. Somebody mentioned that form. And I looked it up, and sure enough, there was such a form. And I thought that no one had told us about it. And then I discovered that we had an email from Southwest Airlines that had a link in it that linked to a place where there was another link that linked to the form requirement. Basically, it was just not very well communicated, because we didn't even really look at the email from Southwest that we got after we booked the flight. Say what?
Southwest is always user-friendly. I just love dealing with them.
Are you being facetious?
No, I can't even spell facetious, much less.
I mean, it's not bad. Southwest is probably as good a way to travel as any by air. Some people would prefer to have a reserved seat. In our case, we usually pay a little bit extra up front to get moved up in the queue. And the way you do that is you sign up to be automatically checked in when the check-in time comes.
Okay.
It's funny how these weird customs and procedures sort of emerge as a result of the way airlines and other travel services decide to do things. But in this case, Southwest has people line up according to number and board versus having a reserved seat. And where you are in the lineup, there's an A set of numbers and a B set and a C set. And people are placed in queue according to when they checked in. So if you pay extra to be checked in automatically 24 hours before the flight, then that automatic check-in automatically places you higher in the queue. And that means that you can board earlier. And if you board earlier, you have less of a hassle finding a decent seat. where you might want to sit, and placing your luggage overhead, which is always, the trick. So we did that, and we were in queue. The flights that we were on were all packed. They had, during the pandemic, apparently limited the seating and not seated anybody in the middle seats. Yeah. That's all over. It's a sardine can.
Man.
So people were packed in. On the flight out, there were flight attendants wandering up and down the aisles, occasionally saying, "Ma'am, you've got to put your mask on." Somebody would take their mask off. They think it's okay. Once I'm in my seat, once I'm on the flight, I can take my mask off. No, you can't. You have to keep your mask on the whole time, which practically speaking means that from the minute you enter the airport, or actually if you get on some kind of shuttle, really, it's from the minute you get on whatever public transportation you use to get to the airport, shuttle or whatever, like we parked and shuttled over. So you've got your mask on from then until you get to your whatever on the other end, rental car in our case. So that's like hours and hours that you're wearing the mask. Mm-hmm. I was a little concerned about this up front because I thought that I would really hate wearing the mask for hours. But what actually happens is that, at least in my case, I sort of stopped noticing it. I didn't even think about it.
It might help with dryness in the cabin too, wouldn't it? Maybe.
Yeah, kind of. That stuff always bothers me. I always feel like I'm having like bad allergies or something when I'm on a flight, and I think that it is the dryness in the cabins. And I was still like, I would cough a little bit or whatever. And you're paranoid about coughing because you're afraid that somebody will think that you've got, that you've got COVID and that they're going to freak out.
Did you encounter any mask deniers in any of your travels?
I did not, but I was in California, and those things don't exist in California.
Well, I beg to differ because I've heard some nasty stories. In the metro areas, perhaps you get out, you're in Trump country again, especially in Southern California.
Well, that's possible. That's possible. We were in LA, and then we were in the Avila Beach area, which is kind of a resort community.
Is it north or south of LA? It's not.
It's north of LA. It's between LA and Santa Cruz, basically.
Okay, so yay, no Orange County. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't go to Orange County. The closest we came was we went to Burbank. We went and visited with Cory Doctorow, a friend of ours, and some other people that we know in common. Cory made dinner for us, and we hung out at his place in Burbank. And again, everywhere I went, I saw people wearing masks, not just indoors, but outdoors too. In Texas, people have never,
It's like that in New Mexico too. It's just sort of, everybody just wears them. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the mask didn't seem to be a problem. Obviously, if you went to a restaurant or someplace like that, you're going to take the mask off once you got to your table. And which we weren't concerned about because we're, vaccinated. Mm-hmm. Though we actually did make a point to wear our masks as much as we felt we needed to, and to book all of our meals in restaurants outdoors. And pretty much we had no trouble finding restaurants that had outdoor seating. So let's see, where was it? So we made the trip over. When we arrived, again, everybody was masked. We had a pretty easy time, like getting our rental car and all that. And of course, blessed relief, climb into the rental car and take your mask off. Mm-hmm. And then we drove on into LA. One observation I made, people tell me I'm a little crazy when I say this, but it's so much easier to drive in California than it is in Texas. Are you guys gonna
say what?
you don't believe that? Well, it is actually true. For us anyway, I consider driving in Austin to be really good preparation for driving in California, because if you can drive through Austin traffic successfully, then California's a breeze.
Well, the way I described it is, I learned how to drive in Colorado, and the big, it was big on defensive driving, right? And then when I got to the Bay Area, I quickly learned how to be an offensive defensive driver. You just, if you don't take advantage of an opening, you're doomed, right? So I learned quickly, like you have to be kind of both at the same time and be a little more aggressive and all that. It took me a while, but then I got it. But it's, yeah.
Well, the difference in California that I saw was that traffic flows in California and it is planned. There are actual people who worked on doing traffic planning and creating flows that would work. And it's not always perfect. We got into a really terrible situation when we were coming down Laurel Canyon to Sunset Strip, where our hotel was. And as we were coming down Laurel Canyon Drive, there had been a wreck at Laurel and Sunset. Traffic was backing up all over the place. We were in a hurry. We needed to get back to our hotel we had someplace we had to go. And I found myself, we managed to detour around with the help of Mr. Google, or Mrs. Google, I guess, helped us to navigate around that stuff and go down to Sunset. And then I found myself driving along Sunset, needing to make a left turn, and there was no way it was going to happen. Too much traffic coming in the other direction. And we drove, and we finally, I couldn't even explain the maneuvers I had to make. I made some maneuvers that were somewhat dangerous, probably. In retrospect, I realized that I probably could have got us killed, but eventually I got us turned around the way we needed to go, and we made it back to the hotel in time. And I think that was the day that we were supposed to go to dinner and had a specific time we were going to be there, and we made it.
You were smart in doing the dangerous moves because that way you don't stand out as being an out-of-towner.
Mm-hmm.
Being too polite and too saying, they go, he's some hick from the sticks there.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Bay Area traffic was the same way.
Absolutely.
I always had to plan an exit from any freeway way in advance because you knew that if you got up there and had to change a lane to get to your exit, you weren't going to make it. You were going to end up in, Santa Cruz probably.
Well, one thing I learned from my crazy traffic experience is that I still have the reflexes of maybe a 40-year-old, maybe not necessarily a 20-year-old,
40-year-old.
but I still have reflexes. I was still able to maneuver. I didn't get killed, he said, smiling.
Plus.
I just had to say really quick, California is where I learned to, do the ongoing dialogue when I was driving, saying things like, what are you waiting, for a turn, waiting for somebody to turn? What are you waiting for, a papal dispensation? Or, while we're young, come on.
That's when you want to have one of those loudspeakers like the cops have, where you make sure everybody hears your thoughts.
The ongoing comedy show. Yeah.
We had one other experience. All of our traffic experiences were pretty good, except one day we decided when we were out driving that we would try to go over to the Getty House, there in Los Angeles. And it turns out to get to the Getty House, you had to drive through a freeway that got pretty bricked at that time of day. It was like a parking lot. So we actually changed our mind and decided to turn around and go back the other way, which itself was an arduous maneuver, but we did manage to do it. And then we found ourselves going down Mulholland Drive. And another experience we had on our trip was that Google Maps, which has done such a good job of guiding us most places we've gone, seems pretty freaked out by LA and that area. And it did not seem to understand Mulholland Drive at all. And we got to a point where it was telling us to do different things in rapid succession. And there was no way to do the right thing because, well, for one thing it told me to do, I just couldn't do. I was in the wrong lane for it. Eventually we made our way back, but because of Google Maps indecision, we lost probably 30 or 40 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
And then we had another experience where we drove to Santa Monica to go to the Santa Monica Pier.
Here, yeah.
So, you put Santa Monica Pier parking in Google Maps and you're going to go there, right? Well, we did just fine getting to Santa Monica. But as we approached the pier, Google decided it didn't know what the hell was going on. And it started doing the same thing, telling us different things. It's like every block, it's giving you different advice. And we finally had to give up on it in that case. And we had to use actual signage to find our way to the parking.
John,
Yes.
you realize that they legalized recreational marijuana use in California. I have a suspicion that the Google app has been partaking.
Well, I know when me and Hunter were there, when I took her on her grand journey up the coast, right? And we went out to the pier and all that. We just couldn't get over that everywhere reeked of pot. And so, yeah, I think you're right, Scoop. It's just, did you notice that, John? I mean, we smelled it everywhere.
I did not notice it. And we kind of kept our eye out for a dispensary, but we only saw one and it looked a little weird. It was like they were only letting 2 people in at a time or something. So we just didn't partake. We didn't even think too much about marijuana. I mean, people go to California and say, oh, you can get recreational marijuana. It doesn't appear that on the paths that we were taking that they had quite set in yet, but it could just be that we were like elderly people who were tourists.
Well, now that they've removed that whole thrill part of it, of being a criminal and facing possible lock up in the jail for a while, when that went away, it kind of, the glow and the hip credibility.
Yeah.
It was just another herb that, might as well be, doing
oregano.
Yeah, because when I went to a dispensary in Colorado a couple of years ago, the only people going in were like grandma and grandpa.
There you go. Well, I thought about ordering, checking to see whether I could order from bud.com, Justin Hall's thing. I don't know how far south they go in California, but that was one possibility that occurred to me. But we were doing wine tasting. What the hell?
Yeah, heck yeah.
The wine works.
You're close to a lot of great wine. That's what I've always done on my trips out, to California. I never looked up for any weed. I was looking for some really good Cabernet.
Mm-hmm.
And people were good about wearing their masks to the wine tastings too, until they started drinking wine. When you're on the airplane, incidentally, you can't take your mask off to eat and drink. And they don't give you very much. You don't have many options, but they'll bring you a Diet Coke and they'll bring you a little package of some kind of cardboard kind of food. But you have to eat it by just raising your mask. You can kind of raise your mask and stick something in your mouth, or raise your mask and take a sip. That's not a great way to eat.
Yeah. They don't give you a straw or anything?
No straw.
Well, what you do, if they give you those, peanuts that they've always had, you just take it and pour the whole pack down inside your mouth, and then you're going to have to work your tongue a little bit.
We use the mask like a feed bag, right?
Yeah, they don't do peanuts anymore. They have this kind of mix thing that's similar to Chex Mix, except not quite as without flavor and that sort of thing.
Yeah. That's the thing that people used to serve when they were entertaining, when they just didn't give a shit about who was coming over. It's like, give them some Chex Mix and some peanuts and tell them to shut up.
It looks fancy in this dish. Yeah, there you go.
I have to take you guys back to Santa Monica Pier, though.
Yeah.
because one thing I should not neglect mentioning is how completely packed the Santa Monica Pier was and how many
Oh,
people were
God.
out on the streets. Now, people were wearing masks, and they were good about it. I didn't see. I don't know. I'm looking at Marcia, who's here with me. Did you see anybody without a mask? Oh, she says yes. There were people without masks. Oh, she didn't think it was packed. I thought it was pretty full of people. That's more people than we had seen in a year. Any place. Well, okay. So Marcia says I'm full of beans, that it was not really packed, but there were a lot of people milling around on the pier. We walked, down to one end and back. We ran into a guy named Black Nate DeBias, who is a rapper and was selling his CDs on the pier.
Cool.
And actually, his stuff's pretty good. I bought one of his CDs. It was kind of fun to watch him work the crowd, really. He did a good job of distributing his music there. That guy's he's going to be a success someday, because that's pretty strong commitment to get out on Santa Monica Pier with your CDs and sell them to people. The trick seems to be to make sure you put the CD into somebody's hand, and then they're almost certainly going to give you some money for it, right?
Or take off running and not give you money.
There was always that
I have
possibility.
some musician friends that have experienced that.
So let's see. And then of course at the Santa Monica Pier, we had to eat something.
Where'd you go?
And there's a lot of options there for hamburgers. We had our first French fries in over a year, I think, at the Santa Monica Pier, and I think I had a veggie burger. But I don't know. I'm looking over at Marcia and I'm saying, you really think that it wasn't crowded? She's looking at me like I'm crazy.
Women are more observant than we are, John. You're just going to have to get used to it.
You hear what she's saying? She says, definitely not packed.
Okay.
But it was crowded, right?
You're overruled. You better just move on.
She says there were people there. It was a sunny afternoon at the beach. And I guess that makes sense. But after a year of being like sheltering in place, that seems weird to see a bunch of people at the beach on a Sunday afternoon or a sunny afternoon. So let's see. So we went to Santa Monica. I've told you some of the stories about LA. The next thing was that we drove to Avila Beach, which is kind of a resort town, very small. And there's like a few like resorts around there. There's some really good restaurants and wine tastings and so forth. The big metropolitan area near there is San Luis Obispo.
Yeah. Okay.
Where they had a Whole Foods and a Target and all the things that we desperately needed in order to get, the things that make life worth living.
And Cal Poly's there, right?
I think so, but I don't really know. I didn't see it.
It's California's state prison for the criminally insane. There, I tell you that because the band I used to manage, we used to play there when we had a tour going in California. You could pick up $500 by playing a 1-hour show for the honor inmates at the prison, and we did
inmates.
It was the weirdest thing, but that's one of the big high points of going to San Luis Obispo was, going and playing at the prison.
Is an honor inmate like somebody who eventually, when they're released, they're like graduating with honors?
Well, they're crazy, but they hadn't killed anyone lately. I think that was the
And good behavior kind of thing, probably.
Well, that's an honor.
Yeah.
But we, and this area was not super crowded. When we first arrived, the beach was pretty full. There were a lot of people on the beach because it was a weekend. We got there on a Saturday. And Saturday and Sunday, there were, like I say, a lot of people there, even though it's kind of chilly there. It wasn't really warm.
There's hot springs, it says.
Yeah, they have a couple of hot springs there, I think, and we didn't go to those, but we considered it. And those probably weren't that packed either. Um, it's probably not quite the time of year that it gets really busy. I think that once school is out, it gets pretty busy around there. And of course, wine tasting. When you go to a wine tasting there, of course, once you sit down and start tasting wine, you don't wear your mask, but otherwise you do. And all the people who serve you have masks. We went to some good restaurants, and they were all good about wearing masks. I mean, I think the pandemic thing is kind of like well understood now. People sort of have it down and they know what they need to do. A lot of people have been vaccinated, but a lot more have not been. I think I'm hearing 30 something percent of the people by now have been vaccinated. A lot of them
37 right now for fully vaccinated.
Yeah.
And it goes up to 40 something with the partials.
So, with a lot of people vaccinated and a lot of people good about wearing masks, you feel relatively secure when you're moving around. And I still would not have been eager about going inside somewhere. We avoided that for the most part. The only place where we were really indoors with a lot of people were the airports and the airplanes. And I'll mention on the trip back, we went through the Bob Hope Airport in Hollywood, which is a smaller airport, much smaller than LAX. And there weren't many people there. It was very, very low population, just a few people catching the Southwest flight that we were going to be on. Otherwise, it looked pretty empty.
Because I used to, that's the airport I'd always use when we'd fly down to work in LA. And we just referred to it as Burbank, you know.
Yeah. That's where Hunter and I flew in there when I took her out on her trip.
Yeah. And, it was always pretty busy, but I compared to LAX, I mean, it's.
Yeah. Well, there's only 2 restaurants there, and one said their grill was out of service, so they couldn't make us a hamburger. So we went down to the other one. They said, well, we're about to close, so we've already taken our grill down. So they couldn't make us a hamburger.
Oh, man.
But like I say, it wasn't very busy, and that's probably why they were closing early. We went to Phoenix. We flew through Phoenix on our way back. And when we got to Phoenix and got off the plane, it was like madhouse. It was batshit crazy. There were so many people there, just a ton of people.
I can't stand that airport. Anyway.
Phoenix is just, that's the way it is. You're glad that you should be glad it wasn't in the middle of summer, because that's the most brutal heat you can imagine. Just walking outside of the Phoenix airport, you can start to feel like a fried egg.
Squashed flat. Yeah.
Isn't
that like the biggest or is one of the other, like New York or something bigger? I'm curious.
It's a pretty big airport. You can see
it's a massive hub.
See all these people back here and back here. These seats had been full just before this. People had already got up and were standing in line, so a couple of the seats got vacated. But if you look back there, especially back here and on the right side, see there's a Panera Bread back there. There's like really dense number of people there, and over here too. I mean, it's not like anybody could distance. You just couldn't distance because there were so many people there.
Wow.
Amazing. But let's see. I could probably show you something else that's even more interesting. Let's see here. I want to show you some people that we ran into that were meditating on the beach.
Oh, wow.
Here they are.
Yes.
So cute.
You can see that these are elephant seals, and they're molting. So you can see that some of their skin is gone. So that's near San Simeon, where Hearst Castle is.
Oh, yeah.
There's a huge tribe of elephant seal that come in and molt there, or they'll mate there other times of the year. It just kind of depends on the time of the year.
I bet it felt awesome. I'm just imagining in my head the smell of the ocean and the kind of foggy cool coming off the ocean.
But just being out somewhere, just being away from home.
Hell, yeah, totally. Oh, wow.
These guys were pretty frisky. This is a bunch of sea lions. We went on a whale watching tour.
Oh, did you see one or two?
I will show you if I can.
Okay.
I'm looking for a good shot here. Oh, here's one. Humpback whale.
Oh, wow.
But I've got a better shot, which is a tail here somewhere. Let's just find that tail. Oh, there's one, but I have a better shot than that. Oh, here we go. And this was off of Avila Beach. There you go.
Mm.
And we were on a fairly small boat.
Nice shot.
And as you can see, we were pretty close to the whales.
Wow.
And of course, we were wearing masks on that part
Were
of
the
it.
whales wearing masks?
No, I never saw a whale's face. They didn't breach.
Okay.
They just showed us their tails.
Did you have any occasion while you were there for someone to go, hey, are you people from Texas? Or did that ever come up?
I never heard that. Never came up.
Interesting.
I don't think. Let me ask Marcia. Marcia, do you recall anybody noticing that we were from Texas or saying anything about it?
Just on the tour bus.
On the tour bus? Oh, yeah. On the
Told everybody about their states.
yeah, so we took the celebrity tour in LA, the celebrity homes tour. Interesting thing about that, on the celebrity homes tour, they don't necessarily show you homes where specific celebrities live. They call out homes where somebody used to live there. I think it's a privacy issue with the celebrities, that they don't like for people to say that this is where this person lives. So they'll say, this is the former home of, but they won't tell you who lives there now.
So they'll do this dead celebrities.
There was one exception, which was Al Pacino. Apparently doesn't mind having his house called out. And then they'll show you like a gated community and tell you who all lives in it. But of course, they couldn't go into the gated community, so you couldn't really see the specific homes. But they called us out by state. They figured out which state everybody was from.
Okay.
And of course, we were the ones from Texas. I remember there was one point where a guy was pointing out a place where part of Lucifer had been filmed. Said, anybody on here a fan of Lucifer? And Marcia and I raised our hands, and we were the only ones. And he said, oh, Texas. I wouldn't have thought that. He was really surprised that we were Lucifer fans.
Well, if you said Austin, he'd have gone, oh, well,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Exactly.
that sounds like the tour was laid out by the legal department, not by the.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I'm sure that they have to be pretty careful about that. Of course, they show you other stuff. We saw a lot of things that we otherwise wouldn't have seen. But, I mean, I'm like an old guy, and for most of my life, I've thought, wow, I ought to go on one of those celebrity tours someday. And Marcia was really eager to do it. So we did it. We booked this bus. It wasn't a huge tour bus or anything like that. And of course, everybody wore masks and behaved well. And we saw pretty much the standard stuff. We drove down, I guess it's Hollywood Boulevard, where the stars are, the stars in the sidewalk. And it's kind of run down there now. And apparently they have a lot of homeless people there now.
Well, Hollywood Boulevard has always been kind of a sketchy place.
Did you go to Echo Park?
No, we didn't go to Echo Park.
That was pretty cool. That was one
I
of
should
my
have thought about that.
Yeah.
But we did drive through Beverly Hills, and Beverly
Yeah.
Hills is like really beautiful. And we went down Rodeo Drive, I had to handcuff Marcia so that she wouldn't lunge out and run into those stores. I could see.
Did you eat at the original Bob's Big Boy?
No, we didn't do that either.
Yeah.
John, you just outed yourself as a Texan by saying Rodeo Drive.
Oh, it's Rodeo Drive. Yeah.
Rodeo. I got corrected on that right away. It's like, hey, let's go to Rodeo Drive. He's like, where are you from? Texas?
I was picturing you and Marsha out there, like some of my favorite episodes of I Love Lucy were when they all went to California. I was picturing you too, like Lucy and Ricky. Yeah.
Do you know that they're making a movie about Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz?
I heard something about that.
With Nicole Kidman as Lucille Ball.
Oh, wow. Okay. That wouldn't, wow. Okay. Interesting.
And can you guess who's going to play Desi? Javier Bardem.
Wow.
What?
Now that's an interesting casting call there.
Yeah, I think that's pretty crazy.
No Country for Old Lucy.
There you go.
To do now.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting.
I'm trying to find, oh, there we go. I can show you one iconic scene, and this gives you an idea of how far we were from things on the tour bus, because we didn't get up real close to it. I kind of thought we were going to get closer than this, but you can see it's a Hollywood sign.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go up to the Hollywood sign apparently, or hike close to it or whatever, but we never did that. We talked about doing it, but we didn't do it.
Didn't it used to say Hollywood Land or something like that?
Yeah, it said Hollywood Land when they first put it up.
Okay.
And
Chamber of Commerce changed that.
yeah.
Well, John, you're doing such a great travelogue. We should be charging for this. I mean, people pay for big, tour, guided tour things, and you're doing well. I mean, you don't have a funny costume and one of the easy mics. You have a really nice.
I can get one.
Because every tour that I've ever been on, they always have a mic that was probably good for you during World War II, but it's gone downhill. You can barely hear what they're saying, but you're doing a great travelogue here.
Absolutely.
Well, I should mention that we have at Plutopia, for the Plutopia News Network, we have just got a little more serious about our setup with now I'm blanking on it. What's it called? Patreon.
Oh, Patreon, yes.
Yeah, I set up with Patreon. So it's possible to go to our site and click through and sign up to subscribe and give us as little as a couple of dollars a month, or as much as $1,000 a month if you're really into it.
John,
but
if you look,
actually, you could give us more than that.
If you look at my chest here, you can give us money by buying one of these right here.
Yeah. And aren't there some attractive mugs too?
Yeah, mugs, T-shirts.
They're suitable for coffee or the beverage of your choice. I've tried it both ways, and it works.
And soon we'll have a private label wine. It'll be great.
Oh, that would be good. That would be good. Where our pals at Bumper Active have set this thing up, which I can show you here.
We also have bumper stickers.
Yeah, where you can buy a T-shirt, a mug, or a bumper sticker.
They turned my offer to be the model for the picture there. I was going to do a nice muscle man model. They turned me down. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, they said we just need to wait.
No, they just said
we just need to wait. I said, go away, kid. Wait till later. Anyway, so there are ways to support the Plutopia News Network. And we are not averse to receiving money to pay our bills. But we don't take any advertising, and we don't take any sponsorships. So we depend entirely on donations. And we don't get any money for what we're doing. We just take the donation money and we cycle it into paying our bills for hosting and so forth. Yeah. And if we get enough money, we'll actually build Plutopia towers.
And there's a free cat with every order. So
Whether you want it or not.
And I guess
Well,
we should also mention, since we took a little break here to ask for money, we should also mention all the great services we provide, not just this live stream, but also a weekly podcast and a weekly radio show.
Yes, indeed.
And the radio show has music on it that you would never hear anywhere else because it's run by weirdos.
And cats.
So you guys done any pandemic travel? I've been sitting here talking about my thing.
Yeah.
Maggie, you did.
I went to HEB and sat in the parking lot and had people bring groceries out. And that's been my travels for the last year.
Well, Maggie actually moved from one city to another during the pandemic. I'll bet that was interesting.
From one state to another, and I helped my daughter move. So I moved twice in 1 year during the pandemic. Wow. So I helped my daughter move in July of 2020. So I drove all the way up to northern New Mexico and back, and had to scope it out to make sure, I was checking out which hotel, seemed to have like protocols for cleanliness and all that. And, had to make sure, had to deal with quarantine. Because when in July, you had to quarantine for 2 weeks in New Mexico if you're coming from out of state. So I basically did. I got her moved up and then was able to find an Airbnb in Abiquiu, Georgia O'Keeffe country. And so I stayed there for pretty much 2 weeks, waffled a little bit, but, I didn't see anybody. But it was fine. I did, run into a lot of people in the outer areas of Texas. Surprise, surprise, when you'd stop at a gas station, no masks, no enforcement. But once you hit the New Mexico border, it was a lot more strict. And so it was just interesting going back and forth between a state that has been on it from the beginning, New Mexico, and then one that doesn't give a rat's ass, Texas. And, being up in here in Taos, it's, everything's opening up again, but still people are wearing masks and it's voluntary to some degree. I just had a visitor, day before yesterday, my friend Teresa from Austin. She's staying in an Airbnb on the Gorge Rim, but she's going to take me out to dinner on Sunday night in Arroyo Hondo, or Arroyo Seco, I think. And I won't know what to do with myself because I've been out to eat since whenever. So I'll let you know. But, more and more people are mentioning to me they're looking forward to, coming by and seeing me or staying here or whatever. And then I can kind of go into high gear of being the tour guide that I am for this area, because I know all this stuff that most people never see. They don't even know about it. And I'm pretty well versed in history and such. So it'll be pretty interesting trying things again. And
you've built an offering around that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I just learned that Ojo Caliente Hot Springs they closed down because the historic bathhouse burned last summer. But they're opening up again July 1st. So that'll be able to happen again.
Is that at Jemez Springs or is that a different one?
No, that's a different one. So Ojo is, you come into Santa Fe and then you head north and you're either going to go to Taos or you're going to go to Abiquiu. And there's a road that connects, it's 285 that connects between Española, Abiquiu kind of side and Taos. And right in between there is Ojo Caliente. And it has 5 different kinds of hot springs. Let's see, there's lithium, arsenic, soda, let's see, iron, and an iron arsenic. So there you go.
Well, they're covering all the mineral group.
I tell you that arsenic one, everybody goes, "Oh my God, won't I die?"
Oh, really?
Yeah, you do the arsenic for it's really great for the old rheumatism and that kind of thing. It really works. And then in the summer, see that pool there that you're
Yeah.
showing, John?
Mm-hmm.
You can there's a mud pit and you slather yourself in mud and then you bake it dry in the sun.
Cool. I do
And
that every
then
day.
and then you get in that hot water there to wash it off. It feels really good. So yeah.
So
I'm
who
looking to
goes
see
to
if
the
I can
lithium
find a.
spring?
What was that, Scoop?
Who goes to the lithium's spring?
Well, it used to be the lithium. There used to be a pump outside where you could you drink it, right? But they capped it. It bummed me out. But it used to be Hunter's dad was the chef at the restaurant there for a while. And he lived here a long time ago. And the kitchen staff used to like run out with their water bottles and fill up on the lithium water, to kind of keep them going throughout the day. And yeah, good stuff.
Here we go.
Yeah.
I wonder if the lithium thing is helpful with bipolar. I know some people take lithium for bipolar.
Exactly. Yeah. Mood leveling. And yeah, in this place, if you can imagine it, imagine going here when it's the winter and it's snowing and you're in this really hot spring and it's snowing and they always have like a cedar pinon fire going. So you smell that smoke and it's cold and the hot springs and yeah.
Let's see here. I've been trying to find somebody slathered in mud and I haven't been able to, but I did find this image.
There you go. Yeah.
That looks muddy enough. That looks like Steve Bannon there in the middle of it.
Oh my God, it is. No.
Oh my gosh.
Well, that explains a lot about Mr. Bannon.
Well, and there's also, the valley, the Espanola Valley, when you're coming up to Taos before you go into the canyon, it's like the breadbasket of New Mexico. So there's some vineyards up there. They grow a lot of fruit trees. There's a historic site called Los Luceros, and they have in the fall, you can come out and pick apples. There's a lot of like craft breweries.
Oh, that sounds great.
I
know they've got that great brewery kind of on the road into Taos.
Yeah,
we spent some time there.
Mesa one. Yeah. So I plan to. I'll be able to report back more as I start going out more now that things are opening. So, I haven't even been to my favorite New Mexican restaurant yet. That's how bad it's been, and it's just
one thing that I really picked up on while we were traveling is that the vibe is that the pandemic is over, even though in a lot of places it's not.
Mm-hmm.
People are just so ready for it to be over. And if you're in a place like, for instance, LA, the numbers are really down there. They've worked hard at it. They've got the numbers down and people are just, they want to live again and they're out just doing all their stuff, and you see people in the streets walking around and going to restaurants and so forth. And they're still, a little bit cautious, but they really want to open up. Yeah. And that just is common everywhere. And I think, I just hope that it doesn't mean that it's going to bite us on the ass, that we're going to have another huge surge.
Well, they're already talking about the surge that could be coming later on later on in the year from the states that haven't been really good at getting vaccinated. There's a lot of them, especially in the South, and they're saying there's a very good chance that those are going to see a big surge again, just because there's just not enough people there to stabilize the whole situation. Because if you have a lot of unvaccinated people, it's just asking for trouble.
Well, and I think too about how, even the people that were anti-mask-ish for a while there pretty much everybody was doing the mask thing and being more careful and more hygienic and everything. So of course, flu was down, colds were down, all that kind of thing. So now I think a lot of those people feel this justification, like I'll never wear a mask again, period. Right. So if we have another surge of COVID combined with your typical winter things, the bronchitis, the flu, the colds and everything, that's, I wonder about it all compounding,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that we may see natural selection at work there, though. And the people who refuse to wear masks or take vaccines are the people who are going to be hit. And some of them will be taken out, and the meek shall inherit the earth.
Getting a lot of good guidance from the people in Congress, certain people in Congress who have ripped their masks off and refusing to reveal whether they've been vaccinated or not. So it's just, seeing this stuff happen, it definitely, brings to mind, survival of the fittest, and not who the not fit are, just by the way they're behaving in Congress.
Yeah, fun times. It's gonna be interesting. But I have noted, just kind of scanning people reporting, they've said things about, I had my aunt who refused to be vaccinated just died of COVID. I'm hearing that more and more. I'm like, well, what else do you need to know? I mean, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, it's a crazy time. We have a sort of cultural civil war going on here, and so much of it is around this disease and around how people are responding to it. And it's like, I have every right to be as unhealthy as I want to be, but really, if you're really unhealthy and your health can impact another person's health, then maybe you don't have that right. If you're going to spread disease because you're unhealthy and not wearing a mask, maybe that isn't really your right. Maybe that's where your freedom is constrained. Because freedoms, you can't have everybody free to do everything they want to, because they will inevitably encroach on other people's freedoms.
Well, there was something it's been a while, but there was something in the, with the whole Burning Man ethos of, I shall not spectate, I shall participate, right? And there's this whole concept around it's, hey, go for it, let your freak flag fly, be whatever you want, but don't fuck with other people to make that happen, right? So there has to be a balance between the, your freedoms and the community as a whole, and that just doesn't seem to exist in a lot of the thinking of these people that are, it's all about me. But again, like, I was wondering what happened. Remember when we read all the articles about the me generation? And then we stopped hearing about the me generation. It's like, oh wait, maybe that never went away. And I've been talking a lot with my daughter about that. Because when we hear those things about boomer, millennial, right? Boomers bitching about millennials bitching about boomers. Like, well, where did the millennials come from?
Well, I haven't been able to even deal with the Pepsi generation yet. So all the other ones.
Well, that's because they're coming at you, going strong.
Totally.
But it's odd though. People of a conservative bent now are trying to move away from any focus on COVID. They're looking now to things like abortion, and gender rights, and the homeless, especially here in Texas. It's like all of a sudden, the homeless are, on the 10 most wanted list as far as the Abbott administration is concerned.
And I can't believe the news that comes out of Texas every single day now. It's like, maybe I wasn't, I knew it was there when I was there, but now, I have people here go like, what are they doing in Texas?
Business as usual.
Yeah, totally. Do you think there's any chance of Abbott being defeated in the next election? For the
Oh,
governor?
sure. All right, all right, all right. It's going to happen.
You
Yeah.
think?
Yeah.
Matthew McConaughey is going to run against him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he has a lot of negatives right now. And kind of the question is, what's happening demographically in Texas?
Yeah.
And a lot of people are moving here, and
Yeah.
they're not all Republicans.
A lot of this, ultra conservative push is basically trying to, hold their own because they know that their
The tidal wave.
minority is shrinking, and it's just a matter of time. You look at where all these people are coming from, and the ages of all these people. All the old white guys are losing power quick,
Mhm.
not just in this state, but in a lot of places.
Yeah. Do you
And I'm an old white guy, but
Do you think one thing I've wondered about is what you think about there's this fear that after the snowpocalypse faded from memory, the outrage would fade from memory. Has it faded from memory, or is it still simmering there?
oh, it's faded. They're ignoring any kind of real regulation of the industry. It's like, well, we'll just let them take care of it. And hey, look over there. There's a homeless person. It's like
yeah. I was
distraction.
Well, it's all a question of what the opposition does with that. I mean, it could fade from memory, but you could certainly bring it back into memory readily enough. But the question is whether the opposition, like the Democrats, have enough fight in them, to really fight like hell, as somebody once said, to try to, in this case, unseat Abbott.
Well, the Austin Democrats didn't make a big showing in the most recent. So that showed that if it's not a presidential year, you're not going to get a big turnout.
And that's how they always get the foothold and win all the time.
The Democrats are just weak. I don't know what else to say about it. And, maybe what we need is another opposition. What I believe is that if the Republicans are defeated, they're going to be defeated by Republicans, meaning that party is going to split.
I agree.
And the people who were like the traditional Republicans that we grew up with are going to fight to take back their party. And you can already see signs of that. I mean, they've been there all along. But the question is, if you split the Republican party into two parties or two sets of people, do they have enough to accomplish anything, or do they throw an election to the Democrats or whatever? But my biggest concern is that the Democrats and the centrists, really, because I'm kind of a centrist myself. I'm not at.
There's a lot of people.
And the people at the center just inherently don't have a lot of fight in them. They're not like crazy about anything. They just want to do really practical stuff. And people who are just practical and down to earth tend not to be big fighters, I think. So the problem, I'm
going to bring back the Mugwump party myself. Mug on one side, Wump on the other.
I don't know. I mean, I don't have any idea who in Texas is thinking about running for governor against Abbott. The only one I know of is Matthew, and he seems to be serious about it. And I do think he could win, but I don't know what his politics are. Nobody's really completely clear about that. He's been cagey about it. He doesn't really say whether he's a Democrat or a Republican. So who knows? He may run in the Republican primary against Abbott.
Oh, yeah.
But if he defeated Abbott in the Republican primary, he might go on to win, but I don't think he's going to be as far to the right as Abbott is. And some of these other guys, but who knows? And really, what's our real problem here? The real problem is that not so much that these guys are on some kind of political right, but that they're really not into policy at all. All they care about is having power and getting money. And I don't oppose them based on their policies. That's not my issue with them. You know, I mean, I probably wouldn't like their policies if they had any, but I don't think they have any policies.
That's
I mean,
the thing. Yeah.
yeah, if they have a policy, it's Trump.
Well, they're
Well,
handing out money and power. Don't forget the Plutopia party, which is just about to come to an end because it's 8:00, John.
Oh, it is.
I just saw it. I just saw it. Oh my God.
So,
Well, we talked for an hour.
give us your power. Give us your money.
Yeah, that's right.
Show us the money.
It's-
All right.
Sweet.
That was
Thanks,
fun.
everybody.
Thank you for the tour, John.
And
Yeah.
next week we have Kevin Welch and Brian Alexander
Yeah.
coming to talk about Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Excellent.
They're
I'm
coming.
so looking forward to that.
Bring
Yeah,
it-
that'll be awesome.
Your own pod.
All right.